There we go. All right, Councilmember Brooks, thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning.
So I'd like to talk about a few of the resolutions that you have put up this session so far. The first one, Senior Center Month. We don't hear enough about or hear as much about senior centers as we do rec centers and things like that. Can you tell us a little bit about them, why they're important, and what we could be doing to increase their usage?
Sure. So when I realized that senior centers were so important was actually during COVID, when a series of them were closing, and I realized it was a source of not just socialization, but food and community for some of our seniors in our community. So we stayed pretty connected with a lot of those organizations. Now moving forward and folks are like activity is picking back up and we're getting to some level of normalcy, the need for senior centers is even more important. During our hearing, I mean during council the other day, we had several seniors talk about this is like their second lifeline. Like after retirement, you have a very active, busy life. This is a place you go to still continue your life, like your life's work. So they not only help each other, but they also do a lot of things in the community. They do a lot of traveling, and it makes sure that our seniors stay active part of our community. So the importance of that is huge, and we need to make sure that we have more and that they stay open. As funding, as we talk about funding cuts and things like that, they're definitely on the line, and they're just as important as rec centers.
Do you have an idea of how many there are across the city?
Oh, I had a number.
Because
Mhm.
it wouldn't just be like brick and mortar things, but there's all kinds of programs. There's a lot of different things.
Yeah, there are a lot of different ones. I think
Hmm.
there is a number for the number in the city. I wanted to
Hmm.
say 77, but I'm not sure where I'm getting that number from based on conversation.
Hmm.
However, there are a lot of other senior programming that's happening. One of the
Yeah,
programs that we work with is Grands as Parents. And another program we worked with is the grandparent program that ARP sponsors that puts grandparents in classrooms from K to 3.
yeah.
So all of those type of programs work hand in hand to make sure, seniors stay active, and, that intergenerational learning piece is so important.
Hmm. That's great. And there's a lot of collective wisdom there that should be dispersed into the community.
Hmm.
Switching gears a little bit, um, I guess the best way to frame these questions is everything we're seeing at the national level is unprecedented. And you have taken the lead in city council when it comes to reproductive health care.
Hmm.
Right now, what would you say is the status of where we are on that in the city and in the national level? What are you hoping to accomplish at the upcoming Health and Human Services hearing on reproductive health?
Well, I think with the reproductive health care, our task force has moved it much further than we were a year ago. We have a plan around a social media strategy, talking about reproductive health care and what's available to folks in Philadelphia and across the Commonwealth. We have a series of education pieces that we're building up to deploy, and we're coming up with legislation collectively that we can possibly move to protect reproductive health in our city. So the task force is moving forward. It's been a very rewarding experience working with multiple organizations, and I'm looking forward to more that we can do. We should be launching some things that around a hearing. We'll talk about some of the things that we should be launching soon.
Okay. So I'm going to ask you the hard and maybe a little bit unfair question here, but we're you sponsored a resolution condemning the Trump administration's deployment of National Guard troops to American City. These and other moves are authoritarian power grabs. Call it what it is. How do we, as Philadelphians, as Americans, how do we push back against this with elections, for Congress a year away and really almost 2 years before any changes can be made in Congress? How do we push back against this? How do we keep saying no? We're not going down this road.
I think we have to speak up. What I've heard from Philadelphians over the last year is that the Trump's policies and how they're affecting them. We see people uh, are wanting the city to step up and do something and push back. So we saw that during Trump's first term, we were much more proactive in fighting and protecting rights of Philadelphians. Like we led on organizing the legal community, on protecting people's rights. We created action guides for the public to help people learn their rights and what they can do to protect their city. And we joined with other cities to also sue the Trump administration. But now in his second term, his attacks are much more destructive, um, but we're less proactive in the response. So right now in this moment, what we do is we'll be judged, but in history will judge us by what we do now, and people want us to see more. So I feel that we need to be more outspoken because it's the right thing to do, and because it's the way to keep us safe from his administration. We see what other cities are doing. If you look at Chicago, Mayor Brandon Johnson spoke out against the deployment of the National Guard. He made it clear that the Chicagoans did not want the federal troops there or armored vehicles in their neighborhoods. The city communicated directly with their communities and their residents, and they didn't hide from Trump. And as a result, he backed off. You know, that didn't happen because they were silent, and it didn't happen because they refused to address Trump. We see in the Collier County, some of the legislators are proactively holding ICE accountable with their power and in the courts. And I think that we need to do something as well. And that's why we put out this resolution. I think we need to say more and do more. And the reality is, like, for me personally, as an elected official, I ran to speak for other people, like be able to speak for community members. And if my community members are calling for me to be loud and clear on what the expectations that we have on our government, I have to do so.
It's strange. If you were to have a psychology textbook in front of you and you open it up and there's a chapter on bullies, the way to respond to Trump is exactly what you would read. You push back and you push back forcefully, and they stop because they're, well, I'm going to editorialize a little bit. They're cowards. Cowards back down when you push back, and that's sorely missing on a lot of levels, especially on the national level from national leaders. And we don't see it as much on the local level. There's only a handful of people like yourself who are actually doing that. And it's fundamentally important right now. What are some of the other key goals you have for this fall session?
Well, some of the things where, like I said, we have to register. I'm sorry, the reproductive task force. We're still moving forward with that. We have. I'm sorry, I'm having a blank in my mind right now. Kathleen, you might have to pop something in here for me because I'm at a blank right now.
Well, I'll tell you what. Why don't we go? Why don't we? Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna jump in and just be like, we are working on implementation of the Power Act. We have a hearing coming up next week on accessibility for 2026, the big events of 2026, and making sure that they're accessible for people with disabilities. And we are also going to continue to be like really focused on what can we do locally to activate people and protect people's rights from some of these attacks that we're seeing.
All right, now I'd like to throw it over to Denise Clay Murray here on Philadelphia Hall Monitor.
Hi, I'm sorry. Now I'm having a brain fart. Councilmember Brooks, thank you for joining us. I guess my question for you is, when you bring these resolutions up in council where you're calling on council to be the voice of the people and say, hey, look, we've had about enough of this, back off. What kind of reaction do you get from fellow council members? Because you're coming at this from the minority. And, I kind of don't see council member Brian O'Neill talking about, no fascism, in Philadelphia. So I guess what kind of responses do you get from
And
your
just as a note, I just want to mention this. I'm sorry to jump in. He voted against a couple of your resolutions.
right?
I just want to put that out there.
And that's kind of why I'm asking, what kind of responses have you been getting from your fellow council members on some of this stuff?
I think we get a mixed response. And I think for me, I enter any piece of legislation or resolution that we enter based on we know where people stand. Some folks, I expect them not to support it. I didn't expect um, uh, my colleague Brian O'Neill to rally behind condemning Trump. Didn't expect him to do it, but we did have support from other council members that were willing to sign off on a resolution for us to moving forward. And I think the reality, we only need 9 for it to pass, 12 for it to be veto proof. So we're not asking everyone. We're just asking folks that are willing to take a stand. With what I'm doing based on what my base is saying, what the community is saying, and stand with me. So that's what I go for. I go for the folks that will be willing to support and also don't want to back down to build bullies. And I think my council colleagues, as you can see with the numbers, were willing to step up and support it.
Now, right now, we have a situation where we don't have a Commonwealth budget in Pennsylvania. And on top of that, we're in the middle of a federal government shutdown, which means that the people on the federal level who could file for unemployment can't really, because the Pennsylvania budget still hasn't been passed. And that kind of has a trickle down effect on everything. Are you hearing from constituents with concerns about that? And what do you think the city can do to make sure that, Philadelphians in particular have what they need to, move forward, considering we passed a budget?
Mhm. I think one of the things we can do is continue to work with our state colleagues to help them and give them the support they need to move this budget forward. I spent some time in Harrisburg on Monday, talking to some of our state legislators and, giving them what they need to help move things forward. Here as a city, we just have to make sure that we have uh, a plan to support our folks, depending how long all of this happens. Like I don't know. I think my major concern is like the school district and things like that because I think they should be coming up on a payment. Like things need to be moving forward for us to get people paid, and I think we just need to, as a city, be prepared to support our own right here in Philadelphia the best we can.
Now, speaking of the school district, the vote on which schools are going to be closed in the latest round of shutdowns is scheduled for November because they want to have it all done by December, when when 2025 ends. Have you heard anything about that? And what are people telling you? And I guess what are you hearing from the school district itself?
Well, we have not gotten a clear list on what schools are closing. We don't know. I don't have a clue. We did sit into some of the meetings that they were having behind around it. We did have an opportunity to look at the metrics that they're using for consideration, the ones that they shared with the community. I'm not really sure what that's going to look like moving forward. Um, yeah, like we sat in the meetings, we saw some of the data they're going to use. We still haven't gotten a clear understanding on what schools were closing.
Now, I interviewed you for a story on the subject of school closings and gun violence a while ago. And you said, something to me that was, very interesting about what you thought was a connection between the two things because of disinvestment. Are you afraid that once this round of school closings happens, we might see an uptick in gun violence and other types of violence because of that disinvestment?
Wow, that's a great question. One thing I've heard the school district say, I've heard it from the school district leadership, that with this round of school closures, they were to take all those things in consideration based on those exact concerns from the last round of school closings. How we're going to make sure that we're not losing children, how we're going to make sure that the programming is in place to make sure children or young people have what they need, whether it's out of school time and before care, because the distance to walk to the school. So I do hear the leadership of the school districts talking about school closure in a very different way that I've never heard in the past. And I'm hoping that they learned from, past mistakes, that these investments need to be made upfront, and the considerations, because these outcomes are dire for our community, are taken seriously upfront. So it was good to hear them say that in some of these meetings. I'm not really sure what the actual finished product is going to look like once schools start relocating and closing.
Now, for one last question, I'm in several political chat groups, and the subject of third parties almost always comes up. The Working Families Party, by having 2 members in city council, is one of the few third parties that actually has done anything on the local level in terms of getting anyone elected locally. What do you think that other third parties could learn from Working Families if folks were really serious about about starting additional parties in this country?
So you want me to tell you my trade secret so somebody can run against me?
Well, no, I don't want you to do that, but
No, you know
just
what?
be general about it.
No, I'm just being facetious. The reality is, like, Working Families Party is built up of grassroots organizations, service sector unions, and individuals that want to see real change. Like, every organization that's a part of Working Families Party state committee is committed to not just base building, but making sure we do political education and, educating communities about government, about politics, about policies, and connecting with people on issues. Like, we didn't just pop out the blue. These organizations have already been doing the work on the ground, and that has been our strategy to get both myself and Nicholas O'Rourke into office, and consistently showing up for communities even once we're elected. It's not like I made these promises and then sit in my office and don't do anything. Not only did I make the promises, I stood true on my promises on my first election, when I got elected in 2019, and now here I am once again fighting for working people, standing up against the Trump administration, and doing all the things that the people elected me to do when I made a promise that a third political party could bring something different, and we have. So if another party is looking to do so, this didn't happen overnight. This has been a project that we've been working on for many, many years that's finally coming to fruition. We didn't just come out the blue. We've been doing the work. We've been grounded in community. And that has been, how we've been able to grow and how we continue to grow.
Well, thank you so much for giving us some of your time, Councilmember Brooks. We really appreciate it. I'm going to give you back to Larry McGlynn, and you're listening to Hall Monitor on WPPM 106.5.
All right, thank you, Denise. And Councilmember, before we let you go, let's talk about something fun. On Saturday, October 11th, there will be the Winghocking Neighbors Day. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So we're having Winghocking Neighbors Day. We'll be celebrating a creative young artist from my community, LGP Qua, and we're calling this Passing the Mic. Qua was murdered on Mother's Day, and he was like a community, like a son to me, from the neighborhood. And we want to make sure that we honor his legacy, and by passing this mic to the next generation of artists and community members. So we're having this family-friendly event. This is our 5th annual time doing it, and it's going to include live music, food trucks, play streets for the kids. The Parks and Recreation is coming out and bringing games and activities. We'll have resources from health screenings to insurance companies to criminal record clearings, and a bunch of other cities departments right on hand with information. Some of my favorite food trucks will be there: Corny's, Payne Catering, Jerk Park, Korea Takara, Dre's Water Ice, and Pee Wee's Ice Cream. We'll have performances from Valerie Pinner, I think her name is, and Expressions of Soul. So I'm so excited about this, but this is our very first time that we'll have youth performers have this whole separate stage honoring young people, and honoring LGP Qua's vision for a positive Philadelphia. So I'm excited about that. We'll have the FLC choir and dance team. We'll have Kappa's dance team and choir out there. So it's something for everyone. So if folks are looking for something to do, Neighbors Day is happening from 12 to 4 on Saturday, October 11th, and will be between the 1500 and 1700 blocks of Wingahocken Street in Nicetown.
All right, Councilmember Brooks, Minority Leader Brooks, excuse me. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.